What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the NASCAR Cup Series Championship at Phoenix Raceway. This will take place on Sunday, November 5th around 3 p.m. Eastern. And I hate to say it, but this is our last time together this year. So I do appreciate everyone that stuck with me the entire season. You guys rock. And I'm looking forward to next season as well. We're going to kick it off with the Clash in early February. Then we're going to run it all the way back until November. The live shows will return. So again, appreciate everybody that was here, dropping likes, commenting, or just hanging out and watching the videos. It means a lot to me. There's going to be a lot more to come next season, and I can't wait. And as always, if you do enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'd be more than happy to answer you. And really quick, I do have to mention the sponsors of the show, Prize Picks and Underdog. And if you're a new user on either site, promo code CPEN will get you a deposit match bonus up to $100. No strings attached. It is free money. Use it to your advantage. You can find the link down below in the description or the pinned comment. And don't forget to use promo code CPEN and tell them I sent you. Let's get into the strategy portion of this video. And while it's a short flat track, so we pretty much know the idea here, we're going to get multiple dominators per lineup. And while that is true this weekend, just know that the final four drivers are typically running near the front almost the entire race. Just what we typically see at these types of tracks. Now, if you watch the truck race on Friday night, that was absolutely insane. It was really fun to watch. I'm glad I had $0 on that race besides a free entry on Prize Picks, so whenever I got my money back. But that was chaotic, and obviously the final four drivers were all over the place. But for Cup Series, you typically see them riding up front, so we're probably going to want to roster at least two of those guys, and I would say at least, but you probably can only afford two of them. So I would, in the majority of my builds, probably just end up riding half the final four drivers, which includes Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, William Byron, and Kyle Larson. I think it's a very strong chance that two of those drivers end up making the optimal. It's not a guarantee. I just think it's probably a pretty smart way to go. Although with Kevin Harvick, how good he is at Phoenix, and it is price tag, I could see maybe rolling with one of those final four drivers and just thinking they don't lead enough laps to where they're optimal at their price points. And if you are looking for similar tracks to Phoenix, it's basically just all the short flat tracks. This is a mile-long track, and we're going to have over 300 laps. So dominator points are obviously pretty important. But New Hampshire and Richmond are probably our best comps. Also Gateway, which is a newer track for us. We've only raced at it just the past couple of seasons here in the next gen car. And if you want to throw in Martinsville, you can because it's short and flat, but that's a bit more unique compared to Phoenix. And finally, moving on to the driver by driver breakdown portion here, I do have to mention one thing first, and that is, of course, if you want access to anything you see on the screen behind me, it's all available completely free for a week over on my Patreon. Now, I realize there's only 1 week left of the NASCAR season, so if you want to try it for free, and then obviously you can wait until next year, that is fine. Or if you want to check it out, and then you can also get access to my NBA or NFL content as well if you want to check it out. But I got projections, sim scores, my data sheets that are all color coded nice and neat, so it's easy to follow with all the information necessary to have successful DFS weekends, cheat sheets, my Discord community, which is awesome. We're going 24/7 in all sports. And the betting model, which has been pretty good this year, up over 30 units in its debut as of right now. Maybe we'll hit on something to get it close to 40 as the season ends, but I have definitely not had too many complaints here, especially with it being the first season that I've actually gotten into NASCAR betting. It's a whole different realm compared to DFS, so it's definitely been a bit of an adjustment, but able to nail Blaney as an early value last week, and obviously crushed at Martinsville, which was really nice to see, punching his ticket for the Final Four. So I think you know where my allegiance is this weekend on who I want to win. Now, wasn't too happy with the qualifying performance, but hopefully we can overcome that. But again, if you want to check it all out, links down in the description or the pinned comment. If you like it, you can stay. If not, tell me to kick rocks. It doesn't matter to me. But let's get into it here. And we're going to start up top in the 11K range. Now, I want to give you guys a warning. Practicing qualifying just ended like a couple of minutes ago. Got everything uploaded. So this is my first run through the entire slate with you all. So just my first initial reactions here. Then I'll have the more updated and polished stuff on the Patreon later tonight. And it's going to be a bit late because I'm going on a birthday dinner for myself. So we'll see what time I get back. But let's kick it off with Kyle Larson here. $11,500 on DraftKings, $14K over on FanDuel. He qualified in the top 5. Now, he opened up as the odds-on favorite to win this race. These are not the most up-to-date odds. These are pre-practice, well, post-practice, I guess, but pre-qualifying. I'm assuming he will be either a co-favorite with William Byron or he's going to slide down to second because having that number 1 pit stall and qualifying in the pole is massive. I believe it's, the stat is 3 years in a row. The guy in first has won the race, so we'll see what happens, but Kyle Larson should definitely be a threat here. We saw Hendrick dominate this race earlier in the season. Larson led laps, Byron led laps. Harvick got there as well, but a late caution threw him out for the lead. And then William Byron, I believe, took 2 tires on pit road, if I'm remembering correctly, then ended up winning the race. And if we're looking at practice, we had an hour-long session on Friday night, so we actually do have some pretty good lap data. The only problem with it is that it was during evening hours while the sun was going down, and this is going to be right smack in the middle of the day. So the track's going to be a little bit different, but it's still nice to see who unloaded pretty fast. And Kyle Larson had a fast car. I mean, 5th in the 5 lap, 11th to 10, 11th to 15, although he was slowest of the championship 4 drivers. But I don't have any concerns about that. He's going to have a strong car. He's going to have the second best pit stall selection, because if you were in the final 4, they get the first choices. It's just in order of how they qualified. So it'll be Byron 1, he'll have the first one, then Larson, then Bell, and then Ryan Blaney. So for me personally, I will just be mixing and matching all these championship 4 drivers. They are the most likely guys that are going to score the most points on the slate, because they're going to be running up front. And, NASCAR always gives them a little bit of extra juice, it seems like, to be able to get there. So I'll have my fair share of Larson, although I would tell you right now, I think a popular way to go for these final 4 drivers is going to be rostering one of the Hendrick cars that are starting near the front to get those lap lead points, and then pairing them with a guy like either Christopher Bell or Ryan Blaney, because they give you that hybrid mix of place differential points / dominator points as well. And they were all really fast in practice. As you can see, Ryan Blaney was top 3 across the board. And I'm actually going to try to pull up my practice sheet here and look at the overall averages. And as you can see, Ryan Blaney up at the top, Christopher Bell number 2, William Byron number 3. And then Kyle Larson was lagging a little bit behind, but he is not someone that I'm ever going to worry about poor practice times, especially in a situation like that. So I would try to get 2 of these championship 4 drivers in your lineup. If you can only get to 1, I would probably try to get a guy like Kevin Harvick mixed in there as well. But at the very least, you need 1 in every single lineup. So if you want to set a group up for that this weekend, I am fine with it. I'm not going to go in depth on each one, but no, they're all great plays, obviously. Denny Hamlin, $10,500. He's starting in 6th. Not very good in practice. I was very upset he did not make the final 4, because if you guys don't know, he's my second favorite driver. Well, probably a co-favorite with Ryan Blaney. I'm just big fans of both of them, and I know it might not be popular because no one likes Denny Hamlin, it seems, but I love the podcast, and he's actually nice to have a driver with some personality, or that actually talks about stuff outside of NASCAR, because all these other guys are just so boring. So it's nice to get a little bit of flavor there. But the problem with rostering guys like Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. is that when the majority of my ownership is going to be here, I just am not going to have the money to fit in much Hamlin or Truex even. He was also not that great in practice. So while I don't think they're going to run poorly, I'm just not going to be able to fit them in. Dropping down to the 9K range, Joey Logano at $9,800. He's starting in 17th. Was 6th in the 1 lap, 9th in the 5, dropped down in the 10, but then 10th in the 15, 19th in the 20. Not overly impressive times. We know how good he is at tracks like this. He is the most recent winner at the Phoenix Fall race. He was in the championship 4 though, so it's kind of hard to count that when he's not in the championship 4 this time. I would probably get a little bit of exposure just because of where he's starting, but again, it's going to be tough to get to him because I love Kevin Harvick this week. This is his final farewell race, and we know how good he is at Phoenix. Like 20 straight top 10s, has 9 career wins here. That's insane. So even though he is not in the final 4, we've seen drivers that are in the championship race that can dominate. We saw it with Ryan Blaney last year, and this is a very similar spot for Kevin Harvick. And, I'm sure NASCAR is going to give him a couple of favors in that car, hopefully, at least allow it to be cheated up a little bit for his final race. So it's just going to be hard to get to guys like Hamlin, Truex, Logano based off of pricing. I want some Kevin Harvick mixed in there. He was good at practice, and like I said, he is absolutely incredible at Phoenix. And short flat tracks in general, green flag speed-wise, he is at the tops of the chart in the next-gen car. Tyler Reddick at $9,200 had a pretty good race here earlier in the season. But it's just one of those things, pricing-wise, it'll be tough to fit. I think he'll be a top 10 contender, but the ownership will be low, and my exposure will probably be decently low as well. Brad Keselowski is someone I can get behind. He was top 10 across the board in practice besides the 20 lap. Ended up having Cole Custer give him his quali lap today, which obviously we know my thoughts and opinions on Cole Custer. Ended up giving him a P31, so we have some work to do. And I know passing at these types of tracks is pretty difficult, but I think Keselowski should be able to gain some spots here, especially over on FanDuel. He's only $8,000. And if you're wondering why Cole Custer qualified, it's because his wife went into labor, so he flew back to Charlotte, but he's expected to be back. So I think he's a fine cash game play if you can afford him. It's just I realize you are rostering 2 championship drivers. If you are going that route, then putting in a 9K guy, you're definitely going to have to start scraping the bottom of the barrel here in the lower 6 or 5K range. Then in the 8K range, we have Kyle Busch. He was pretty fast in practice. He's $8,800. He's starting in 18th. I'm not sure what to do with him because I don't typically love him at short flat tracks, but at the same time, he has had some decent runs, and he also did win a Gateway earlier in the season. Now, keep in mind that was with good track position because he qualified in the pole, and that makes a massive deal at these types of tracks. But he was fast, like I said, P1 in the 1 lap, 3rd in the 5, 5th in the 10. Fell off a bit in the 15 and 20 lap, which is a bit concerning. I'm not the biggest fan of Kyle Busch this week, but if you end up getting some of him in there, it's based off projections. Like if you gave him like a 12th place finish, for example. Like, that's not terrible. But again, pricing wise, if you're thinking about it, you're going to eat up close to $24,000 if you're rostering two of these four drivers if you happen to go that route. I'm not trying to make it seem like that's the only way you can go. I'm just saying a lot of people will probably end up going that route. Then you're going to have to make some sacrifices salary wise because that is a hefty price point. Then Chase Elliott, $8,600. He's starting in 20th. Decent lap times, especially in the long run, 9th in the 10 lap, 6th in the 15th. We know he's great at short flat tracks. I actually don't hate him as a play here. Might be a little bit more appealing than Kyle Busch, to be honest, although I think we all know those Hendrick resources are all going to the 24 and the 5 car this weekend. Ross Chastain's in 8th, and he'll probably run around this position, I think, for the majority of the race. 5th in the 1 lap, 7th in the 5, 6th in the 10, then 8th in the 15, 5th in the 20. Seems like he's got a pretty solid car. I don't hate the price point, so if he can just stick within that top 10 and kind of hang around that 5 to 8 range all day, maybe pick up a couple fast laps here and there, that's not a terrible price point for it, so I think he's fine for tournaments. Chris Buescher also looks pretty solid. I think he can have a very similar run to Ross Chastain, so I throw them in the same exact boat there. Ty Gibbs starting at 11th. Honestly, these three are pretty much the same exact place. I'll probably end up having very similar exposure to all three of them. Although that Ty Gibbs price on FanDuel only being $7,000, I'll end up probably having more of him over on the blue site. Dropping down to the 7K range, you have Bubba Wallace, who's in a similar category to these guys, but starting a little bit further up, so there is more downside. Wasn't super strong in the 5, 10, and 15 lap runs, but 6th in the 20, 2nd in the 25, although not as many drivers ran those. I think he can probably stay within the top 10, but I would prefer the guys above him just a little bit more because we get more PD upside. Then we have a couple of SHR lawnmowers here in Chase Briscoe and Eric Almirola. Now, I typically like them at these shorter flat tracks, but wasn't super impressive in the short run in practice. 25th and 28th, 23rd and 29th, 21st and 26th. But they did pick up some speed in the longer runs, but go figure, less guys ran that. So it doesn't look like they're going to have the best cars this week, and I'd have to imagine, pretty much everything they got is going to be in the 4 car this weekend. So while I like them at these types of tracks, if you're looking at their numbers, they honestly don't look too bad at all. Chase Briscoe with 11.9 average finish, and the sample size that we're looking at here for the next gen car and short flat tracks, and also adding in some Phoenix. Eric Almirola at 16.4, 2 top 5s for Briscoe, 1 top 5 for Eric Almirola, and if you extend that to top 10s, Briscoe, 4 top 10s, 6 top 15s, and a 7 race sample size. So despite their practice being slow, I'm hoping they have some long run speed. So if they do, at those price points and the starting positions, I can get to a little bit of these SHR cars, even though it does look a little bit ugly on paper. Alex Bowman, $7,100. He's starting in 23rd. You can probably put him in a similar category, but like I said, all of Hendrick's resources are probably in the 5 and 24 car this weekend. But that's not to say that Alex Bowman can't get into the top 20, but I just can't imagine I'm going to be getting to a ton of him. I think projected finish-wise, it'll probably be in the mid to late teens, which won't project too well, and I can't give him any dominant points. Daniel Suarez is probably going to be a fade for me. I know he's really cheap. He's starting in 16th, but practice wasn't overly impressive, and these short flat tracks haven't been too kind to him anyway. Average rank position of 16th, average finish at 21st. No top 5s. I believe 1 top 10, 1 top 15, so not really in on Suarez this week despite the cheap price point. Eric Jones is starting way too high for me. Really bad in practice, and not typically someone I roster at the short flat tracks anyway, so I'll be fading Eric Jones and assuming he falls back. Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon. I like the Penske cars at tracks like Phoenix, so I could maybe get behind a little bit of Austin Cindric. Starting in 27th, he probably won't project too awful. Austin Dillon will probably end up falling back 31st, 30th, and 28th in practice. Ryan Preece, like I said, these SHR cars are pretty sneaky at the short flat tracks. I don't hate him as a tournament play. AJ Allmendinger starting in the very back, so if you just need a cheap PD play, wasn't super strong in practice, but should be a top 25 contender. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. practiced right around where he qualified, which, if he holds his track position, I wouldn't complain too much because a top 25 at $6,000 is not awful. And we have seen Ricky Stenhouse Jr. flash some upside before. Justin Haley starting all the way in the back, nearly at 35th in the final row with BJ McLeod. Obviously, I don't really see him as a top 20 contender, but based off of practice, 20th in the 1 lap and 12th in the 5, I think there's some top 25 potential here, but probably will finish anywhere from 25th to 30th. But to fit in some studs up top, I am fine with that. Just gain 5 spots, and I won't complain. Justin Haley, Hocevar, which if you were a Corey Heim fan, or you had Corey Heim in DFS, or even if you had Carson Hocevar in DFS, or whoever it affected, I think Friesen also got piled up into that. He wrecked Corey Heim. I know he said whatever he said, but then he was putting on a little show, punching his wheel and acting all upset. But I think we all know what happened. But Hocevar in the Cup Series, take that aside, he has been pretty darn good. And it looks like he's going to have a borderline top 20 car I know he was kind of slower in the short run, 27th in the 1 and 5 lap, but then top 20 in the 10, 15, and 20 lap runs. So I'm fine with Hocevar at that price point. We have seen the upside there. And looking at his odds, based off of everybody else here, I mean, that's pretty good at his price, I think. Michael McDowell 19th, he'll probably be able to hold ground somewhat. I mean, we know these shorter flat tracks. Well, Phoenix isn't like the shortest track in the world. It's a mile in length, so it's not like we're talking about a half mile where everyone's going to get lapped immediately. But it is still tougher to pass. So Michael McDowell starting in 19th is fine. Very similar play to Hocevar. The Joy starting near dead last, like, I get it. If you are just playing these guys up top right here, and even some of these guys, which you should be, you're going to have to dip into this range. And I don't really have strong stances here. Like, I like Todd Gilliland's track position, but based off of practice, he's not going to be able to hold that. So I would just really try to mix and match these guys. I don't think I'll be playing any Ryan Newman, Ty Dillon, JJ Yeley, BJ McLeod. But I will say, if you are going double championship driver and trying to fit in a guy like Kevin Harvick, I don't know what kind of money that leaves you with. I mean, you definitely have to dip into that 5K range. So if you have to punt with like a Ty Dillon or something, you can do it, but you just hope they stay clean. The other guys absolutely crush. And for the fans, BJ McLeod, never. With that being said, that's all I got for today's video and for the rest of the year, sadly. Sucks to say, but I do appreciate everyone that stuck by me the entire season and supported all the content. Truly means a lot, but I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.